as he will be heading back to Miami. And Jalen Ramsey, along with Jonnu Smith, will be heading to the Steel City with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm intrigued by this one because Minkah Fitzpatrick that's very interesting. I don't think he hasn't played bad recently. I mean, he's not the best safety in the league, arguably like he was 3 years ago. Still very much fine. Wonder how he feels going back to Miami. I know it's a completely different regime. Everything has been topsy-turvy since he was last there. And 2, very interesting move by the Steelers too, adding a little bit of depth to that cornerback room with Joey Porter Jr. and squad, which in theory makes sense when you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in your division, along with everything the Ravens throw at you and Cleveland. But it is a very interesting move for the Steelers where they once again find a way to add a bunch of pieces on defense to lock in that winning record and get bounced as the 7th seed. But their defense should be fun with Jalen Ramsey, however they plan on using him.
Yeah, this is intriguing from a lot of perspectives. Like, I feel like everybody's missing the whole, and we talked about this off air, Minkah, yes, the regime has changed, but Minkah left Miami in a very bad spot. Like, not he left Miami in a bad spot. Miami did him dirty, and he was not shy about it. And look, he hasn't been the best since 2022. That was his all-pro year. But he's been more than effective from that perspective. It's a shock that a team that needs a safety is trading a safety. Because right now you have 3 really good corners, but only 2 of them can start. Like, who are you going to start with? Joey Porter Jr., Darius Slay, and now Jalen Ramsey is my first question. Who's moving to safety? Because one of these 3 has got to be a safety at this point in time. Like, you have to fill the role of Minkah. So that's shocking. From the Dolphins' perspective, I think you hit a home run here because you were getting 0 from Jalen Ramsey after this season. You were going to watch him walk into the blue abyss, go sign probably with, I don't know, somebody within the division for a whole lot of money, and just get nothing. So this is the best case scenario for them, who they agreed before the offseason to just they'll part ways after 25-26 season. So that's like, for them, okay, sure, you did good. Minkah's an effective piece, especially considering they got rid of Javon Holland not too long ago. So this is also another conversation about, like, hey, you're replacing a need at least finally. But yeah, I don't know, really kind of this trade just bothered me for a lot of perspectives. But at the same time, I guess it's a neutral 0 across the board. And then honestly, the Jonnu Smith part, I could care less one way or the other. Because what is Jonnu Smith going to do that you don't already have Pat Freiermuth to do, other than Jonnu Smith runs routes faster? Like, that's the difference here. But you don't already throw to a tight end. So why are you going to have 2 tight ends that you don't throw the ball to? I mean, are we literally doing exactly what Arthur Smith wants here?
That's because Arthur Smith is the OC, and we know what he did. He threw the ball to Arthur Smith when he had Kyle Pitts, so maybe we're just seeing history repeat itself. So I think this was an Arthur Smith trade to a T.
Yeah, this is Arthur Smith OC Arthur Smith, not Arthur Smith head coach Arthur Smith. This is the Tennessee Titans when they had 2 tight ends that were the number 1 receivers. This is like, oh, hey, we traded George Pickens, so guess what we're going to replace him with? Another tight end. Like, well, okay, hold on now here. Let's calm down here. But yeah, I mean, look, in the division, this makes sense. I just really don't know where you're going to fit all 3 pieces into 2 spots. This is the square does not equal the circle moment. So, I don't know.
It makes sense why they brought in Juan Thornhill a little bit more too, just to, like, if they were planning on moving Minkah, or if they just brought him in for depth and know now he's going to be the starter, however they plan on doing that. I guess their base defense could be a nickel defense where they primarily are in that to get all 3 of them out there. Jalen Ramsey tackles well enough. You could stick him in that nickel star type of role, I guess. But their biggest issue I'm looking at right now too is you got a TJ Watt you got to re-sign, and now you're making a deal for Jalen Ramsey. I mean, maybe you're trying to entice him like, hey, your job's a whole lot easier because now people aren't going to get as open. But they keep loading up the defense, which is smart in theory. But offensively, you're bringing in a former MVP, multiple-time MVP, but 40 geriatric quarterback. You just lost your starting running back, and now Jalen Warren, who is normally your spot running back, your receiving third down back, is now your starter, unless Caleb Johnson takes that role. DK Metcalf, an upgrade over George Pickens. But after that, you got Calvin, Austin, Jonnu Smith, Ben Skoranek, Scotty Miller. Like, there's still some holes there in the offensive line. I like a lot of the young pieces. They just got to pull it together, especially now that you got an older quarterback. But it's just a very unique set of moves. It's literally the most Steeler trade I can imagine, where this doesn't get, it's just like they are going to be stuck at that 9-8, maybe 10-7 mark. Probably squeak into that 7th seed as somebody else who should get their loses in week 18 and the Steelers win. And once again, they get absolutely obliterated by Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City, whoever that 2 seed is, something like that. Like, it feels like this is the most Steeler move I've ever possible. Which it's great for a Steeler fans because at least during the regular season you get to enjoy it a little bit. It's better than having a team that's 2-15. But come January, it's gonna be like, well, all right, they're minus 8.5 point. They're plus 8.5 underdogs. We're gonna take the other team to cover.
Like, this is one of those situations where before the season, before this trade, and after this trade, I feel the exact same way about the Steelers.
Net neutral.
Oh yeah, you guys are still 9-8 comfortably. You might surprise some people and go 10-7. You're not going to surprise. I don't think this is a team that's going to lose 9 games. Whether Aaron Rodgers' Achilles pops again or not, it doesn't matter. I think they're still going to be good enough to get to the 500 mark and win a game because that's just the Mike Tomlin regime. But is that good enough for Steelers fans anymore? I don't know, because that's a question that only they can answer. Because are you okay, Steelers fans out there? Yes, you have all these Super Bowl rings from greater than a decade ago.
Almost
Recently, yeah, I mean, really, we're pushing 20 years. But are you okay with continuing to be known as the middling team who can win the North, but they don't do anything after they win the North? Like, it's been a long time since you emphatically were the Steelers. And I feel like Steelers fans need that moment again. And I don't know what they're going to do here. This is not the trade that gets them to that point.
They're stuck in that 6 or 7 seed. Once again, they're not going to beat. I'm not going to say never. They're unlikely to take over Baltimore or maybe even Cincinnati to win the division. We'll see with Cincinnati. They're still a wild card. They could go either way, but especially Baltimore, they're still probably going to find a way in the playoffs somehow, some way as that 6 or 7 seed. But I still don't see how it's possible. Maybe they could finally win a playoff game for the first time since 2016, but this is the epitome of a net neutral trade, even though it involves a stud multiple time all-pro player in Jalen Ramsey. Problem is it's weird. It's very much overloading on what you already have. What I'm really, really curious to see too is if they do get to the playoffs, how much different is it having an Aaron Rodgers? Let's say he's healthy and everything's clicking. He feels good. He's playing good enough. Let's say probably not MVP, but like a good enough Aaron Rodgers. Like he's healthy, reading the defense, doing what you would kind of hope from Aaron Rodgers. That might change the math a little bit. That might change the math, but this trade doesn't change that either way. Like that math is still the same because it's dependent on how Aaron Rodgers is. Comes to playoff time, if he's healthy and everything's clicking, he's able to cerebrally beat people with his mind like we know he can do if everything is firing. But this trade doesn't make it. What I will say makes the Steelers' defensive fantasy a little more enticing because I do think Jalen Ramsey could do a little bit more with like forcing more sacks, just holding up in coverage a little bit longer, being able to play a lot tighter man-to-man to get those sacks. Maybe the takeaways are net neutral because Minkah was pretty good at getting interceptions, but I do think it could. Their fantasy defense still probably be top 5, I think. So I think in that way, maybe instead of 7, it's 5 now, but not a whole lot.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, I know we're focused on Jalen here. I'm going to say Jalen stays as a corner no matter what they do, but you have Darius Slay. And I talked about that. We talked about this when he was an Eagle. We talked about this when he was a Lion. Darius Slay moving to safety makes the most sense for his future, but more than Jalen right now. Jalen has a couple years before he really has to make that move. He's still a top 10 corner, and it's not 10, 9, 8, or 7. Like, arguably 6, 5, 4, 3, potentially 2 or 1, depending on the argument. But, with Joey Porter Jr., you don't want to move him either because he's so young. So the odds are Darius Slay, if you need him on the field every down, which you do, you want him on the field every down. Either you play the nickel or you play some kind of 3-3-5 hybrid, which I've never really seen be effective in the NFL, so I don't know how well they could pull that off, but it's possible. You need to move one of them, and you just got to make the decision here. And I think that's where you're at with the Steelers. As much as I want to focus on Jalen, and as much as I want to focus on his potential of moving, because I do think long-term he could be one of the greatest converted safeties to ever play. Yeah, realistically, yeah. Darius Slay is a Charles Woodson disciple in a lot of ways. He grew up on it. He talks about how he was his favorite corner. So maybe Darius Slay is the guy here at the end of the day. But yeah, it's a good problem to have if you're Steelers fans. But it doesn't fix your other problems. So make it make sense. You never will. But yeah, good luck on another 9-8 season.
They did do one thing interesting. Baltimore added Yair Alexander, which is a big move in the North, and the Steelers one-upped them with that, I suppose, considering you got Ramsey, who, for no other reason, he's healthier than Yair recently. So you made the big corner off-season edition. You won that one. So, we'll see how this one goes.
If single signings won seasons, the Steelers could honestly say they would win the AFC North right today.